Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Decloak podcast. And today's guest is Rebecca Ennion, Cyber Threat Intelligence Manager at a large retail bank in the UK. And hello Rebecca, how are you?
Yeah, I am well, thanks. Well, sweltering in this muggy July heat, but surviving.
Yeah, likewise, just for our audience benefit, I was telling Rebecca last episode I was recording this week, the heat was so unbearable that it was fogging up the glasses. So if it happens again, we'll let James, our co-producer and editor, just do something gimmicky with it. But anyway, we'll jump straight in then. So Rebecca, you and I have obviously been acquainted at an event in Scotland, and yeah, we had a lot of synergies across cyber, and obviously your role being an emerging leader in cyber when it comes to threat intelligence. I am very interested to get a brief overview of you and your career.
Yeah, so Becky, Rebecca, take or leave any of them. I'm a cyber threat intelligence manager. So who am I and how in the world did I get here? So I will go all the way back to getting to uni. Always wanted to go to uni. My sister went, it looked so much fun. I wanted to actually play sport. I didn't really care too much about the degree, but I picked maths because I was lucky enough to be good at it. And my mum and parents had said, maths will get you anywhere. So into maths, into uni, and I'm sort of looking for career opportunities, looking for what to do. And my sister actually inspired me a bit. She was doing programming, and I thought, well, that looks quite fun. I'll try and get into that. So I took a C++ module, applied to many different summer internships, got rejected by many summer internships, and was lucky enough to land a random summer cyber school by this company, GCHQ, who I had applied to out the blue, not really knowing who it was or what they were doing. But I was lucky enough to land this 10-week course. And basically the idea was to take people and students who were in STEM backgrounds but did no cyber, did no computer skills, and see if they could teach them cyber in a very short space of time. It was complete luck, I think, to be honest, that I landed this. I knew cyber was cool and could be fun, but I didn't really understand at the time what I was signing up for. I'd heard the worms, phishing and malware and worms, and you heard the big stories, but I didn't really understand what I was getting into. Anyway, the 6 weeks blew me away. I had the best time. I learned so much, as you can in 6 weeks. I felt like I learned an absolute ton, and came out and was like, right, well, cyber's for me. I'm going to work in cyber. It was so cool and so interesting. So finished uni and applied to a couple of jobs, but didn't get any. So thought right away, you know what, I'm actually just going to go take the year off. I've always wanted to go abroad, so I took a year off. Went on a ski season, went on a summer season, as you do after uni. If you've got nothing to lose and no job prospects. So then I came back for a winter and applied for every cyber job under the sun I could and didn't get any. No surprise, I literally had 6 weeks of experience. But I was not deterred. I was going to get into cyber. So after applying for a couple of different cyber companies, I took the stance that, well, I've got maths. I could get into some sort of tech grad scheme, and then I'm just going to strong arm my way to security and find myself there. And of course, I thought, well, maths, banking, when you're doing a maths subject, I just said never going to work for a bank. It's so stereotypical. Anyway, I'll take that back. I'm so glad I'm here now. So yeah, applied to this bank's graduate scheme, and this was literally my last application. Got onto it, and I was absolutely buzzed. So popped off for another summer away, came back, started my graduate scheme. I was really lucky. My first placement was in AI. So it was really cool, a really, really great starting place. And then the next placement, there was a whole load of options, and I saw mobile threat intelligence, and I was like, cyber, I'm getting there. So messaged the hiring manager, organised it, messaged early career, said I really want to go here, got myself there. And I was in cyber. I'd done it 3-4 years later. I'm finally here. I spent the placement really enjoying myself, and then really unfortunately had a bit of an accident and injured my back. And I was off work for 6 months, working half-time. But luckily, because I was working half-time, early careers were like, well, it's probably a bit much for you to start a new placement, just stay where you are. I got another 6 months in mobile threat intelligence, where I actually again got sort of moved to our assisted team fraud threat intelligence, who we worked really closely with. So I got to go to fraud threat intelligence. And then by the end of that, I was in control, and I messaged early careers saying, there's another team, cyber threat intelligence. I want to go here next. I know you want me to go in other rotations, but I want to join cyber. It's where I want to be. Luckily enough, they let me go. I joined the cyber threat intelligence team on the last placement of my graduate scheme. And then again, luck hit and someone left during my last placement, and I was able to interview, get that job, and roll off. And so that was in 2020. So that was a crazy long time, 4.5 years, 5 years from that summer internship of knowing I wanted to get into cyber to finally getting my way all the way around and landing my permanent role. So yeah, I started in the cyber threat intelligence team in 2020, was an analyst for 2 years, and then got my manager position 2 years ago as well. And I've just been, I think, always a bit lucky that it was cyber threat intelligence. There's tons of roles out there, right? Like you can work in hunting, defense, SOC, but a lot of them sometimes require a bit of technical work or technical understanding. And threat intelligence has definitely just been one of those lucky places where you learn on the go. And to be honest, you can't always know anything because that's the beauty of the job, right? Every morning you wake up and you have to learn the new attacks, the new techniques. So I could get away at the start with sort of learning as I went and gaining knowledge. So yeah, that's really been my journey. To top it off, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I decided that what I really wanted when people saw my CV was to know that, yeah, okay, I did the job, but I could class that off with a degree as well. So actually, on the side of my work, or in work, they offered me to do an MSc, integrated MSc, in
Nice.
cybersecurity. So a year and a half ago, I started that, and that was, oh no, it must have been 2 years, sorry. So 2 years ago, I started, did my MSc, did my dissertation, and graduated last year. So I finally now have a shiny MSc to go on my CV, which tops off my maths nicely, because math was always fun, but it wasn't a passion, but cyber has been. So yeah, that is how on earth I'm here now, surviving in cyber, really enjoying it, learning lots, and yeah, learning as I go, really, I think.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey because obviously I'm familiar where obviously your employer and having been in that place as well, the graduate scheme is excellent. And I would say to anyone listening that if you're in a company that does offer or you're looking to apply for someone, the graduate scheme is always a good route because you'd mentioned rotation, different placements, and obviously you found your niche, which is obviously cyber. And I'm interested, there's obviously different components to the cyber departments and divisions, and why threat intelligence? Is it something about the data? Does it scratch that itch with a mathematical part of your brain? I'm interested to know, why you were drawn towards that.
So there was a couple of different ones when I was back as a grad. I remember there was another graduate in threat hunting team, and they were about to move on. There was another graduate in the scenario team, which actually isn't a team anymore. That was a long time ago. But yeah, what really drew me to threat intel, I think for me, it's got to be the learning and the growth. Being comfortable. I've had to always learn, right? Like I've always known I've been a bit on the back foot. We'll get to imposter syndrome later, but someone without a tech background, it's hard to feel at home somewhere where everyone else is technical. And landing a role in threat intelligence, I think, was just so perfect for me because it isn't about being the most technical there. Like, of course, that helps. It helps you understand what the deep attacks mean and what the details really mean internally. But it's a team about growth and about learning. Every single member of my team has a growth mindset, and that is probably one of the most important things about the team. And it doesn't matter who it is in the team. It could be me, it could be one of the other managers in the team, an analyst, an intern, or my manager. Everyone is happy to ask questions. Everyone will do a learning session. I could turn to my co-manager and say, hey, please would you do me an learning session on this? I don't know what you talked about on that call. And of course they would. Like, it's not even a question. So everyone's always happy to learn and share and grow. And I think there's something about threat intelligence as well. It's one of those nice spots where I can be at the epicenter of a lot of different things in security. So obviously we bring a lot of threat intel into the internal teams and say, this has happened, this is ongoing, threat actors are doing this. And then we quite often get to either work alongside or see the work happen. So though, I don't expect myself ever to go to architecture or cyber defense, I get to see what those teams do with my information. And so I get to see a lot of what goes on. So it's a nice place to be, to span and understand the rest of cyber. I've worked on a lot of incidents now, which I love, absolutely love, because I learned so much. But yeah, it's just one of those places where there's always something going on. Like there's always a new incident or a new report or a new actor or a new piece of really interesting information, to be honest. And you get to share that and learn it. And yeah, I'm lucky enough to never have Monday scaries. I always wake up looking forward to my day, and there's always going to be something new or some new project to work on. So yeah, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of report writing, and if anyone who knows me, I am dyslexic and spelling is and report writing is my worst. It's why I did maths and not English. But you've got to have something to work on in a job, haven't you? So
I love it. And you mentioned earlier that one of the pathways was going to be sport that you wanted to do, and just out of sheer curiosity, which sport was that?
Oh, so yeah, outside work, I love my sport. So at uni, I did water polo, which is I don't know if many people do it, but it's super fun. It's like rugby in the water with football goals for anyone. No, it's not on horses, for anyone who usually asks. And then I play hockey and volleyball as well. So now here, in my normal day-to-day life, I love to still play hockey, and I play volleyball when it's nice weather. And love to hike as well. So yeah, get up to
Nice.
a lot of stuff outside work. It's really important
And
to me.
and do you take any of that competitive mindset into cyber? Again, anyone that knows me knows that I can apply a lot of like football management approaches to, I've been around a while, and it's good to have that, like again, that team mindset. How do you motivate people? You're a manager, so you kind of act like a captain of the team as well. So I'm interested. Do you ever apply anything that you've learned from your sports towards your cyber career?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of those things that I think you forget how useful it's been. When you're doing something and you're organizing a team or getting on with different people or working on a team-based incident, you forget, and maybe you do things without realizing that most of it comes from sport, right? Like the competitive nature and being able to stay calm when there's something probably not exciting is not the word, but it is competitive and it's exciting and it's time based. But you've got to keep calm and you've got to work with other people and yeah, definitely managing a team and getting the most out of your team. In a hockey team of there's 11 people on the pitch, but we have a lot of girls in the team, and you're walking with all sort of different personalities, and everyone's there for different things and wants different things, and you've got newbies and oldies and captains and coaches and people with different interests. So yeah, I think sport has been instrumental in a lot of me and my personal skills and what I'm good at. And I think definitely I have edged towards a bit of like a people manager rather than a technical manager, just because I really enjoy that side. I love developing people. I really enjoy getting in grads and interns and apprentices and like just building them and helping them be the best person they can and seeing where their career is going to go and developing them. And yeah, I think a lot of that comes from sport and being around others so much and working together in a team.
I love it. And I have some arguments with people on this. Like, some people I've probably clashed with in the past who probably don't have that mindset. And as a cyber leader, they're quite distant or vacant from the teams that they manage. And it sounds like you love that hands-on approach, and I think that's really good for mentoring, and bringing people who are probably not conventionally drawn towards cyber, and then kind of helping them reach their potential. And then run me through some of the challenges then that you're faced within the industry.
Yeah, so you can't get this far without having a bit of imposter
Yeah.
syndrome, right? Like, especially coming from a non-tech background. And I think it's just one of those things. Everyone has different techniques. Sometimes it's really nice to hear your higher managers talking about it and the fact that they get it as well. just acknowledging it. And sometimes you just can't really overcome it. Like, even for this, like, I was getting a bit of imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to come on and talk about it? My family were like, well, it's your profession. Of course you can talk about it. And you're like, ah, well. But yeah, I think especially in a more male-dominated area where you don't come from a tech background, I've had to challenge myself a lot with just the building credibility and respect. Like, I want to enter a room, and it's probably a lot for myself. People wouldn't just make a snap judgment of me, but you come in with your own knowledge that you think you don't know as much as everyone else in the room. So just working that extra bit hard to be reputable, be knowledgeable. And I think, I can't remember that psychological model, but it's, knowing your unknowns, knowing how much you know, and knowing what you're missing as well. And I think for me, it's getting to that nice sweet spot where I feel comfortable in what I know. And I also know there's a lot I don't know, but I know it's there. So it's fine. Like, I'm not an imposter. I'm learning. And I will hopefully one day learn all that stuff that I don't know yet. But yeah, definitely one for me. Then I'll talk a little bit about my promotion, actually. That was a really interesting one for me. I really struggled with my promotion, and I think I'd really surprised myself I struggled with it. Looking back now, I felt so ready for it. I was really helped by the previous person in my role who prepped me for the role a lot. And I think it was the first time in a role where I've just switched from an analyst to a manager. And just one day I had a new title, I had new responsibilities, and of course I'd been building up to it. But it's not quite the same as suddenly that day that the person's job you had has gone and you're there. And it took me about half a year, to be honest. And it was a really tough time. I really struggled to be in that new role and to feel like I was worth it, and not constantly be thinking, oh, what did they do? What should I do? And actually learn. I think it was a lot of, I've really admired the person whose role it was before me. So I really looked up to them. And I think it took me quite a while to realize that I need to make the role what I want to do. Who am I as a manager? How do I want to manage? Who am I going to be in this team, and not make myself a lovely portrait of what was. Just because I liked it doesn't mean it's right for everyone, right? You're just going to be yourself. But it took me a really, really long time to figure out, and a really long time to settle into my role. So yeah, I think that's probably the personal side. Professionally, yeah, I'm not particularly old, under my 30s, but I don't know anyone else feels this, but I've always felt a bit of a corporate ladder. And it's a really interesting thing to feel when you're really on in my career. I'd really felt pushed to constantly climb, and I wonder if that actually probably pushed quite a lot of stress into my promotion. And actually, now I'm here, I'm really enjoying my job. And I've been really enjoying this new frame of mind where the corporate ladder isn't everything, and actually I can really expand in the role I'm in, and take on lots of different opportunities without feeling like that the next thing that's going to make me happy is the next job up. So that has been fascinating to me, and I'm still not quite sure in it. Still trying to work out what's for me, and what I want from my job. But so far, I think I'm getting is in my job. So I'm very fortunate in that aspect. But yeah, some of the struggles and interesting look backs of the last 2 years.
Hi everyone, I wanted to take a couple of minutes and talk about today's sponsor, which is Vanta. Whether you're starting or scaling your company's security program, demonstrating top-notch security practices and establishing trust is more important than ever. Through my experiences of using Vanta, Vanta automates compliance. It covers everything from SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and many more, saving you time and money, while helping you build customer trust. I love all the insights that it gives me, covering everything from asset management, my control failures, audit status, even vulnerabilities from other connecting systems which have been integrated into the platform. Having a centralized place for something like an ISO program has been a godsend for me. Plus, you can streamline security reviews by automating questionnaires and demonstrating your security posture with a customer-facing trust center, all powered by Vanta AI. Why Vanta? With over 7,000 global companies like Atlassian, Flow Health, and Quora, they all use Vanta to manage risk and provide security in real time. So, my listeners can claim a special offer of $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/decloaked. That's vanta.com/decloaked. Thanks.
Yeah, I think everyone goes through that. You know, I think especially, you know, let's just say a younger generation, right, that's coming through. I can say that because I'm slightly older than you. So, but I think a lot of people intrinsically are just, sometimes in cyber can be negative. So obviously you're coming in with a degree of new passion, you know, positivity. Some people are like, I think within the industry or maybe your peers in other groups, you know, they're probably like, oh, you know, they're kind of dreading having to muster some energy. And that's probably because they have been burnt out, or they're probably just weighed down with quite a lot of things. And I think it's essential for people to help as many people you can in your circle when it comes to cyber, because the more people that you've got on board, or the more people that you have like-minded, then that positivity is infectious, I think, because cyber can be quite stressful, you know, and leading up to your promotion, you probably put a lot of pressure on yourself because, again, things like imposter syndrome kicking in. And it's funny, someone said to me once before, imposter syndrome is a lack of belief in oneself and a lack of planning in oneself. And I never really kind of understood that until, you know, I'd got to a point and I was like, I'm so focused on a kind of ideal of something rather than actually just being like, just have a solid plan, stick to the plan, reiterate, do a retrospective, and everything kind of, that pressure alleviates. As obviously you've now experienced it, you know, after 6 months, and you're like, you'll know yourself, you want to impose your own style within a team. And, you know, I think that's always difficult as well when you're replacing someone in a management position. And then I'm interested, you know, what advice would you give to people who are taking that next step and moving into leadership roles? I think give me three tips you would give to people.
You don't need to become a leader. I think most people already are leaders. And what I mean by that is I've recently done an Empower Women to Lead Cybersecurity course. And nice. I was buzzed. I was like, I'm going to go and learn how to become a leader. Can't wait. I'm going to come out of this better, more skilled, more technical. I'm going to learn it. And the whole point of this whole course, and it was very empowering, was that I didn't need anything extra to become a leader. I just needed to identify my form of leadership, what strengths it had, what weaknesses it had, and then live in it and become a leader, and then empower others around me to lead in their specialties. And, you know, analysts in my team, they don't need to have a leadership title to be leaders. They can already be leaders in what they're doing. So that's my first tip. Second is listening and trusting, I think. I've always been really lucky to have a fantastic team around me, but I think a lot of that comes from hearing the team and hearing what they want and trusting them to be the best that they can be. I think whenever I first get someone, one of the first conversations I like to have is a really open and honest one, and it's what are you here for? Are you here for a grad placement just to have some fun? Are you here because you got put here and actually you really don't care about this placement, but you want a career in cyber? Or are you here to meet lots of people and learn contacts? You know, it doesn't matter why they're here. I don't mind. I like them to be passionate about their own reason to be there. And that could be anything. And I don't even mind if they don't want to work in threat intelligence afterwards. I'd rather know, because then we can push on with that. So yeah, listening and trusting and knowing that, yeah, you can help people be the best they can be. And then I think leadership and management, not a people manager to be a lead, you can be a specialist. And I think that's often forgotten about. Just because the next step up is a step up, it doesn't automatically mean you have to take on people. You can be a tech specialist and you can be a leader and a manager in your own right. And it doesn't mean you have to have people under you and help them through. I think quite often that tends to happen naturally for people, and then you probably know if you're a people leader or not, but you can definitely be a technical leader and be a really, really core part of a team, even if you don't have people under you. So yeah, those are my three.
I love it. I love it. And then moving into the one topic that you wanted to discuss that you feel needs relevance or clearing up within the industry.
Yeah, so what do I think needs clarifying? I'm going to talk about threat actors and their lives and unstereotyping, de-stereotyping threat actors. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking about a threat actor, probably the majority of people are like young man, hoodie, basement, dark, like the Google stock images. They do good ones and they do look exciting. And I think people tend to think of threat actors like that, you know, dark, down in a basement, working away all night. And that has just drastically changed in the last 5 years. And these are people. These are people with jobs. These are people with jobs at 9 to 5 or whatever sort of time zone they work in. They have benefits. They interview. They move jobs. They go on holiday. They are your average people. And I think it's really good to talk about exactly what that is and what it looks like, because it helps understand threat actors a bit more. I think one of the things that really started me on this journey is I used to monitor quite a few phishing emails that were coming in to the bank. And there was always a period of quiet over Russian holidays. And I just thought that was fascinating. I was like, what do you mean they go on a holiday? Like, they have time off? What? And that really took me on the journey to, well, yeah, they do have time off. They go on holiday. They go and have a nice break. They don't want to be working through this time. It's their time off. So yeah, and where did this stem from? It's probably best to start with, I like to talk about ransomware because it's one of my specialty areas, but it helps talk a lot about it. So if you think back 10 years ago, right, like ransomware probably was a bit of a one-person thing. If it was a bit of a luck, if they got it, they encrypted the system. It was all done through an email. It was all done quite secretly. You know, nothing would ever hit the news, right? Unless it was huge and absolutely massive ransomware attack. And now if you think back over the past couple of years, lots of things hit the BBC News. I find it fascinating when I log on to BBC and see a cyber ransomware story and think, wow, like the public and BBC are clued into this now. I think one of the first big was, do you remember the petrol station in America a couple of years ago? What was that name? Colonial Pipelines?
Yes, yeah, the pipeline, yeah.
That was all over the news. Fascinating. And of course, it had a real world impact. So yeah, it did get over the news, but I don't think there'd have been that same coverage a long time ago. And MGM, the casinos that scattered Spider Squad, all in the news, all creating publicity. So that leads us back to threat actors. They want this publicity. And again, that's sort of talking about threat actors and how they work and who they are. So you're on your own, you're a threat actor, you're doing ransomware. You are really good at it and you're profitable. So how do you build your system? How do you become more profitable? You hire another threat actor to come sit next to you and you show them your good code and your good ransomware project and you say, hey, look, come work with me on this, we'll double it. We'll both target different companies, see how much we get. And that works, and you hire someone else, and you hire someone else. And then it sort of becomes like I like to think of it as like a business. You're a CEO, and you're getting more money, you're getting more profitable. So what do? You hire specialists, and you then have to put out jobs and job applications. I want to hire a malware specialist now. I want someone who sits all day and creates malware. And then actually I want someone who extorts data, just to bring that off. And then actually, we don't have enough attention about the data. I want someone who creates media attention for me and gets me in the news and gets me spotlighted. So people are really worried when they see Lockbit because they know that that's a serious ransomware actor. And then you say, oh, actually, I want to hire someone now who's really good at ransom and ransom demands. I want someone who's really good at different languages so they can talk to tons of different people. And that's now no longer someone sitting in their own basement. That's a whole business. That's a business with different departments, with different specialties. And one of the fascinating things I think over the last couple of years is there's been a couple more news stories out, like the ransomware diaries, or there was a reporting bit put up about a security researcher who posed as a Russian to apply for a job at a ransomware group, and it was a fascinating read. And they talked about sort of the benefits and the money split they get and what they'd want them to do. And I remember one of the other interesting bits is you had to be, in the report they said, you had to be a native Russian to apply. You couldn't just Google stuff about Russia. You had to know. I forever found that interesting. I think, like, what's the equivalent for the UK? Like, you're in line for a cup of tea. So an old lady pushes in, oh no, what do? Do you let her go? Do you not? You know, like, what is native Russian that you can't Google? Fascinating. Anyway, off track a bit. So yeah, it was a really interesting look at the fact that these are now jobs. They're advertised. They're on forums for you to read. And that's just exacerbated ransomware actors and actually their popularity, because the more successful these ransomware actors are, the more they earn and the more they show it off. I don't know if you've seen the videos of the Lockbit gang leader.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah.
He drives his car around and shows it off, right? It was mental. It was really cool. Not cool. It's interesting. It's really interesting. The fact that they can just be out in the open, right, and showing off their money. So yes, these actors, they want to gain media attention so that when they encrypt data and they take it out to a company, they can say, hey, BBC News, report on us, because that creates pressure, right? Like, if they take a company's data and everyone's emailing the company saying, what's happened? Why have you been attacked by ransomware? Where's our data? Yeah. They're under more pressure to pay it, of course, right? So yeah, so those ransomware actors, they do things like that. They create social media profiles. I can't remember who the actor was a year or two ago, but they were on Twitter, posting constantly, posting funny things, like a 19-year-old. Again, just fascinating to see that these people becoming real life people. They're not someone in your dark basement anymore. It's the person on Twitter that's tweeting about having stole your money. So yeah. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's moved into this like social influencer territory where they are fully aware of the psyops behind obviously increasing that pressure on a company and getting notoriety, and then flexing because no one's going to extradite them because they're probably working on behalf of a nation state, or they have close ties to people that are in power within that government or country. But it's I think that's an excellent topic because there's not enough information on it. I mean, some of these entities have like a HR department, payroll, and it's like it's just it's crazy. But and then finally moving on to our last topic is the one thing in cyber you think is BS and needs a focus or needs to change.
Yeah, so what I'm going to talk about is the bullshit around AI. And I'm sorry, I know we've managed to get this far without talking about it, but hopefully I'm going to talk about it in a deflammatory way. So what I'm going to talk about specifically is how actors use AI. And I'm going to hopefully talk about it in such that you can see it's not, threat actors are not going to take over the world. In fact, robots aren't going to take over the world, and they're also not going to take our jobs. AI is not going to do that. I think we definitely feel it internally and within the industry that AI is just a flammable topic. You say it to higher up and it can be very worrying, and you hear deep fakes and deepfake scams. And yeah, so I think one of the most interesting reports I think that really helped solidify this topic for me was one, I think it was by the Google group a couple of months ago. And they talked exactly about, or they've been looking at behind in the search engines about how threat actors had used AI. And it is not groundbreaking, right? Like, again, like my last topic, they're really not much different from you and I. So the sort of things they were actually looking at was very similar to us, probably creating a cover letter or two, helping with a piece of code you don't understand, summarizing a topic you don't know, helping with a bit of translation. So yes, the things that threat actors actually use AI for are some of the really simple tasks, which does really help for a lot of your low sophistication actors. So they might log on and say, build me an email in English asking for a payment, or in German or French, and AI can really help there. And that really, we say, lowers the entry barrier for threat actors. So yes, it does increase the number of threat actors who aren't very sophisticated. They can start sending these really elementary phishing emails. They might not have been very good at translation before, or crafting these emails, or setting them up. And now they really have help to get that. But again, if we go back to our business model, if you're a CEO and you've got 20 employees, you've probably hired someone who can speak multiple languages. So you don't actually need AI to do that. Of course, that can clear up a couple of things, but it's really not groundbreaking. They do things like vulnerability research as well. So, tell me about CVE, this. What is the exploit POC, or proof of concept? How does that work? So they use it a lot for reconnaissance. I think in the report there was a lot of Fancy Bear. I hate to pick one moniker, but I'm going to go for the CrowdStrike one. So Fancy Bear, and they'd been using it to research satellites. And again, it was just asking how they work, what do they do, and of course, you could have read that online, but it's really nice to have AI summarize it for you, to be honest. And Fancy Bear, clearly a busy group, so I'm going to have AI help them out there. So yeah, and there was another one, I think, Velvet Klima. Again, these, if you don't know CrowdStrike and all these naming things, they like to put an animal afterwards, and that tells you what country they originate from. So bears from Russia, Klima from North Korea, Iran is a kitten. Do not ask me to tell you why. And you've got pandas from China. So yeah, Velvet Klima, they were doing spearfishing, crafting, and stuff like that. Imperial Kitten, they were doing defense evasion, or asking how to evade antivirus and not getting too much from it, but all that really basic stuff. And at the end of last year, if you saw the news articles, there was an AI released called Worm GPT. Did you hear about it?
No.
So Worm GPT was a single, I think it was a Portuguese guy, took an AI chatbot and made it for criminals. He called it Worm GPT, and you could log on and say, hey, help me craft a spearfishing email, or a business email compromise campaign. And it was AI for criminals, really. And again, just doing those really basic things like, what's this? How do I use this bit of malware? What's the best for injection? And so, yeah, it's nothing that you can't Google. It's not groundbreaking. They're not going to take our jobs. It's not going to invade the world. And realistically, anything that threat actors are using AI for, we're probably using it as well defensively. And again, nothing groundbreaking, but, just in that basic integrated way. So, yeah, that's all what I wanted to talk about. AI, it doesn't need to be on fire. It's just something we're going to incorporate slowly, I think.
Yeah, until I don't know, I think the ramp up of quantum compute, and then maybe processing will be at the same kind of level as the brain, and then it'll be but then you'll just get a really cool company that'll come out with just a decent firewall that can cope with it, or some sort of inspection, and then it'll be aggregated into a nice tool that we'll all need to spend I don't know, $500,000 on, and then it'll just continue to eat itself, I guess, this AI nonsense. But at the same point, it's good to hear that, obviously these threat actors and entities are using it for reconnaissance, using it for research purposes. I remember years ago working in a bank, and they had quite a low profile in terms of being hacked, or I won't name various different technologies, but let's just say the technologies were so old that there was only a handful of people in the bank that understood the technology. And their argument was, well, someone would need to have mainframe knowledge, but then the kind of profile was that obviously people that would attempt script kiddies, hackers and stuff would need to do a fair amount of research, because the technology was decades old and supersedes them being on the planet, basically. So it was quite interesting, when I was up and coming and hearing that from people, and you were like, wow, okay, so interesting. If they had AI back then, that would have made people's job a hell of a lot easier. to quantify information and then obviously look for specific exploits or entry pathways. But yes, on that note then, Rebecca, thank you again for your time. Thank you so much for your insight. And yeah, everyone, please like, share, subscribe. And then, yeah, any closing notes, Rebecca, before we finish up?
No, it's just been a pleasure to be here. And if you're coming from a non-cyber background, keep at it. It's really great industry to be in, and a really welcoming and open place as well to learn. So keep going if you're trying to get in, and congrats if you've made it.
Excellent. Thanks again, Rebecca. Cheers.